Finally, who on the Columbus Blue Jackets are the Oilers taking a look at? Well, I believe there's several players, okay? Now, outside of goaltending, because I do think they're looking at Elvis Merzlikins. And I did write a post about him and another Blue Jacket that I'll mention here. But Merzlikins is a very solid goaltender. He has been very underrated in the past few years. Last year was a bad year for him, just straight up bad, okay? But he is not usually that bad. Now, you can go check out the article that I wrote about him just to get a better sense of what's going on with him, but I think it's a good option for the Oilers, is what I'll say there. Now, there are three players who I think could use a change of scenery for one reason or another. 2 forwards, 1 defenseman. The 2 forwards, I'll just briefly touch on them. Patrick Laine and Igor Chinikov. Both of those guys, the Blue Jackets are crowded on the wings. And that's where you got Patrick Laine and Igor Chinikov. Okay, both of those players, I know Chinikov, you're basically looking at him almost as a Kostin replacement, but Chinikov can play more minutes, and Chinikov has more offense to his game. So maybe more of like a Anton Slepyshev type player, but like more aggressive than Slepyshev. For those who follow the Oilers who remember Anton Slepyshev, Chinikov is more like him than Kostin, but he's more physical than Slepyshev, so maybe he's kind of like a combination of the two. Slepyshev was fairly offensive. I actually haven't compared Chinikov to Slepyshev. That could be something I take a look at in the very near future here. Now, Adam Boqvist. I think this is a defenseman who could really flourish under Paul Coffey. For one, he's kind of in a similar mold to Evan Bouchard, where he's a puck-moving, skating defenseman, the modern defenseman that you hear people talk about, okay? I had an article come out about him yesterday. You can go check it out. Everything that I'm going to say about him was in the article, but in case you're not going to just stop this and go read an article, he has the highest Corsi for percentage per 60 relative to his teammates. So he hasn't been given a large amount of minutes. He's gotten a lot of minutes lately, which is part of the reason why people believe he's being showcased to other teams. The Columbus Blue Jackets also have a logjam on defense, and they want to give David Jiricek more minutes. They can only do that if they move out a defenseman. Adam Boqvist, right-handed defenseman, kind of clogging up the top 4 there in Columbus. And he was scratched for 6 or 7 straight games. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was something like that. Now, looking at Adam Boqvist's metrics, the team itself is bad, okay? And that is part of what's going on with his metrics. If you look at just Columbus, they're 2 standard deviations worse than league average in Corsi against per 60 and goals against per 60. To compare to the Oilers are 2 deviations above league average for Corsi against per 60, but the same for goals against per 60 as Columbus. Now, that discrepancy between the two, because usually the two are more closely connected, that huge discrepancy shows 2 things, in my opinion. It shows that the Oilers, their goaltending as a whole for this season has been subpar. Okay? It's been great in stretches, and this most recent stretch is the most consistent that I've seen Stuart Skinner this year. Okay? He had some bad games at the beginning of the year, kind of sprinkled in with some good games. And his good games, whenever he's played league average or better, the team wins. And that almost goes for every team, okay? And as far as the league average goes, league average, when it comes to goaltenders, a stat that I track, quality starts. And that's essentially what quality starts tracks, is what games, or in a game, if a goaltender has a league average save percentage or better, that is considered a quality start. And teams that make the playoffs, their goaltenders, they win as many games as their goaltender has quality starts, because they're able to take that league average goaltending that they're getting and turn it into a win. It typically doesn't. Typically, goalies don't have a lot more quality starts than wins. Typically, it's a general. There are some outliers, and there's some reasons for that. Recently, I'm thinking of UC Saros. I think he's had a year or two where he's had like quite a few more, and Ilya Sorokin as well. But that is sort of based more on the team itself and the team not closing out games, etc., etc. So that's my little stat spiel. So back to Boquist. That's looking at his numbers and looking at the environments. He's not a bad defenseman, okay? Could the Oilers use him? Maybe. Sure they could. Sure. But if you acquire Boquist, who are you moving out? Are you acquiring Boquist so that you can move on from Cece or Kulak? Right? If you acquire Boquist, now you have 4 right-handed defensemen in the NHL. So what becomes the plan for Boquist? Now, maybe he gets put on a pairing with Kulak. They eat up a lot of 5-on-5 minutes, and you have Nurse and Desharnais together. Or maybe you have Nurse and Boquist. That could be fun. Nurse is actually very solid defensively. He's very underrated. And it is just a very interesting situation with all of this Columbus stuff going on. But he could be a fit. He could really thrive under Paul Coffey as a coach. That's everything for today. If you enjoyed this episode, please like the video on YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a comment letting me know what you think. Who do you think the Oilers are looking at